Karen, are you in Austin taking the calls, if any? Looking for the calls, potential phone calls that come in with Jennifer gone?
I don't have any, it's downstairs.
Okay. Oh, okay. I didn't know that, so I didn't.
Into the phone downstairs.
So there's no way to route them up here, huh? Okay. Oh, you learn something new every day.
Good morning. It is Wednesday, July 5th. We moved the meeting because of the 4th of July. I hope everybody had a good 4th. It's Wednesday, July 5th. We have a full slate of commissioners. We have our administrator and the clerk of the board. And this time, I'll call the meeting to order and ask everybody to please rise and join in the pledge. Okay, there are no minutes to approve, so vouchers, I believe we only have one.
One voucher today. Move for approval of fund expenditures in a total amount of $342,535.75, as presented, and note that it has been reviewed and signed by two representatives of the auditor's office and the county administrator.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Moves us down to the consent agenda. I believe there are 3 items on the consent agenda.
Move for approval of consent agenda, 3 items as presented.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second for approval of the 3 items on the consent agenda. With no discussion, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Down to regular business. Item A is open appraisal position, options A or B, Resolution 2023-189. Mr. Rosenau.
So Commissioners, I'm bringing this back before you from last week at a step 6 to a preferred step 4. We have had verbal communication with an individual that would accept a step 4. We have not gotten verbal communication that they would accept a step 3. But for the sake of time, I submitted that in there. Should the Commissioners go that direction, we could at least contact the individual and see if they would. I'd like to point out on the ASR, there's 0 budget impact for 2023. The vacancy of the position has left us enough funds to handle bringing in at a step 4 an individual that is highly qualified for that level plus. It could, in 2024, have a fiscal impact of up to $6,000, depending on the COLA, depending on the union contracts, negotiations, and so forth. So I put approximately in there on the step 4. Step 3 would have about $3,500 impact next year. Neither one would have an impact, 4 or 3, this year on our budget. We have the funds to do that. Bringing this experienced individual in will save us at least 3 training classes that they would have to go to versus bringing somebody in at a level 1 that only meets a level 1. So I'd like to point out that the last 5 employees that we have hired, appraisers in my office, all 5 of them were not brought in at a 15-1. 3 of them did not meet those requirements. We brought them in as trainees. Even though we had more than a 15-1 budgeted, we brought them in a step 14-1 and trained them up. Now, there's still courses they have to go through. Even after getting passed, getting accredited, there's still courses they have to go through. This individual would not even have to go through. They already got them. 2 of the people that we brought in out of the 5, we brought one in at a 15-3, that had experience, not as much as this individual, and one in at a 15-6 that had about the equal amount of experience of this person. So I feel it's more than justified bringing them in at the 15-4, especially since it's no budget impact this year. And what training they would not have to go through next year and the year after and the year after certainly will offset some of those expenses in years forward. So You'll also notice, it's pretty self-evident in the background that we've laid out for you. So any questions, I certainly want to answer them. We want to get this person on board. We have over 4,000 properties with new construction that we've got to get out and get done. Not to mention all of the other requirements towards the end of this year, 1/6 of the county then has to be gotten into. And if we don't get people that can get on board, step up quick, get with it, we're just not going to get that done.
Questions?
You mentioned the training that the other individuals had to go through. How long are those courses?
A week each. There's at least 3 of them that this individual would not have to go through. Now, they still have continuing education. There's still courses they have to go through. There's requirements to still be met every year. But there's at least 3 of those courses that they've already met the requirements of and do not have to attend. That's a week long.
All right, thank you.
So if memory serves, you have told this board in the past that your staff, your assessors, are not appraisers. Is my memory correct?
No, they are appraisers. They're ad
They're
valorem appraisers with
Are
the
they-
Department of Revenue accredited.
Are they certified appraisers like I might hire to come appraise my house for a bank?
They're not a fee appraiser, no.
Okay. Is there any difference between the experience and the roles and responsibilities of a fee appraiser as opposed to what you have in your office?
A fee appraiser takes one appraisal site at a time. They go out and they look for comps of, say, 3 comparables. They look to see what differences there might be in those. You might be comparing a single-story, single-family residence to a 2-story. They then subjectively will add or subtract values on the comps to offset or, in their mind, justify what the value would be for the one that they're appraising. It's all subjective. The ad valorem appraiser is different than that. We certainly look at comparables later on, but initially, the majority of it is done by statistical, where we don't compare or subjectively change values from a 2-story or 3-story or 1-story with a basement or 1-story with a loft above it compared to 1-stories. We take 1-stories compared to 1-stories, 2-stories to 2-stories, single-story with a basement to a single-story with a basement. And those are statistically looked at in their group. So there are differences. The mathematics that's involved in an appraisal with our office, statistically, is college-level mathematics. And in all honesty, fee appraisers, they add, subtract, multiply, and divide basic because that's what they're looking at. They're totally different in the way that they assess things and look at things. So.
Suggesting that the professional demands of the position, are you suggesting that the professional demands of your ad valorem appraisers are greater than that of a fee appraiser? Is that what I understood?
They're different. I would say they're
Well,
equal
you said
in their
one was
individual
college
fields.
math. Well, you said a fee appraiser is just adding and subtracting, and what your folks do is college math.
Well, there's more than just mathematics involved.
Okay.
So I'm not putting down fee appraisers by any means. They have a specifics. They do their job specifically the way they are. In my past life, I used to review, accept, or reject fee appraisal appraisals. I reviewed the fee appraisal appraisals. So
Is
and
this applicant a certified fee appraiser?
they are.
They are. Is that expertise part of the rationale or justification for coming in at the higher step?
The degree of that, they have industrial, commercial, residential, and they have massive college-level statistical abilities, a computer degree in computer sciences and statistical analysis. Their abilities in spreadsheets and that is very advanced capability and understanding and knowledge. So all of that is taken into consideration, as well as what training that they have.
And, excuse me, those are things that your ad valorem appraisers don't have.
No, they don't have it maybe to the same degree being hired, but they do get that advanced training as we move through training.
Yeah. So what I'm getting to is it looks and feels very much like you've got a highly qualified person here, and in many respects overqualified by the description you just gave. And the concern is that in constricted budget times and tough budget times coming next year and a year beyond, I believe, can we afford to bring people in at higher scales to purchase experience that is above the requirements of the job we're hiring them into?
I would agree with you if I was bringing them in at their qualified level, which would be a 17. I'm not asking to bring them in at a 17 or a 16. I'm asking to bring them in at a grade 15, just a higher step, which has been consistent with what we have done, the sheriff, public works, everybody, every department does this.
So correct, it's a 15, and you would bring them in at 17, so you've just affirmed for me that you would bring them because of their skill set and background in a full 2 grades higher. So you've just affirmed my point, which is we are justifying paying a higher wage because we've got someone who is, in many respects, wonderfully, but frankly, overqualified for the position. We're over-hiring for the position. That's what I wanted to know, is are you wanting a higher step to buy that experience that frankly isn't required for this position? And I believe the answer is yes. I would compromise at a 3. Anything above that, I'll oppose. My fellow commissioners will vote as well. That's all I have. Thanks.
So Commissioner Peck, again, it's great if we can get people that are highly, highly qualified. We don't have an opening at a 17. If we did have, this individual would be certainly a prime candidate to fill that with less training requirements.
Sure.
Just the savings alone on the training that will be required in the next 12 to 24 months that we won't have to go through is immense. Now, that's not to say they won't have some training. They will. So.
And the thing that folks seem to forget is that when we bring somebody in at a higher step, that escalates each year. So you've already touted the fact that there's no real cost this year, although there is. It's just that you've got vacancy money that'll cover it in your budget. I still contend that just because you have money in your budget doesn't mean that it's free. It's not. Next year, when the person starts out at a 3 or 4, they become a 4 or 5, and accelerates them more quickly to the highest paid end of the scale. All those things are cumulative across our hundreds of employees. And if we aren't watching nickels and pennies today, we're dollars under budget a year or 2 from now. That's my concern. That's my premise. We can simply agree to disagree as to whether or not the person you're hiring somebody that's overqualified for the position. I think you are. I think it's great when you can get people like that when we can afford them. But I don't think we can. Willing to compromise at a 3. Thanks.
Okay.
You had said that, how many new properties are in line to be assessed?
For new construction,
construction.
we have over 4,000 properties that are in set right now that need new construction appraisal. Okay, and that is done over the next 2-3 months is when we'll be working on getting that. Then in addition to that, we start directly into 1/6 of the county, which is due before the end of this year. And that is another 6,000-7,000 parcels on top of that. And that has nothing to do with the senior programs that's increasing drastically right now. And we'll be releasing those numbers here the first part of August. But currently, we're going to go from around 44,000 to around 61,000 income qualifying seniors, disabled, and so forth. We're not even bringing this person in that high if we bring them in at a 15-1. They won't even be at 61,000.
So what is your outlook as far as getting the new construction assessed?
We don't have qualified bodies, we won't get it done. That'll directly affect you in budgets. Last year, we had 1,300 that we could not get to. They were lesser value, But over a 10-year period of time, I gave each one of you a letter showing that there was over $1 million impact to the taxing entities, districts in this county over a 10-year period, because it doesn't just affect your budget. It affects the city of Pasco and the fire districts and everybody else, hospital districts. It affects everybody, on that. So, because it is new construction, it goes directly onto your budgets.
All right, thank you.
So John, if we bring this person in 6 months' time, doesn't their step go up automatically?
If they complete probation, there is a step increase, no matter what step we bring them in at. And that was figured in at this approximately $6,000 for next year's budget increase.
And that's in a 6 month.
Yeah, because if we brought them in a 15.1, they'd go to a 15.2. We bring
Yep.
them in a 15.4, they go to 15.5. It's still about the same dollar difference.
Yep.
On
I'm just saying if they go through that period, then they get an automatic step
Correct,
increase.
if they make it through the probationary period, correct. Now, that's subject to union contracts and negotiations, which I have no control over, that they will be entering into yet this year for next year's contract. So I can't tell you what you will approve on union contracts. I have no input on that, no vote, and no say.
All right. I have no further questions.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve Mr. Rosenauer's request in the form of a step 3 hire. And I'll note that he's just told us that the person would be a 4 in 6 months anyway.
Second.
There's been a motion, a second, for the position open to be offered a level 15.3, and it's been seconded. Is there any further discussion?
I'll just add a note that, speaking for myself and half a dozen neighbors in my neighborhood and a whole bunch of citizens I got phone calls from, just like I think my fellow commissioners did, I don't know if it's college-level math or if it's a broken model, but I think we've all seen that there's some real serious issues with assessments this year. And I appreciate the fact that when I mentioned in a meeting a few weeks ago that mine was clearly broken, and again, thanks to Mr. Dockstetter, who actually pointed it out for me, I wasn't aware, and you redid it, and you sent it out, and it was corrected, and I didn't appeal as a result. The point I'm getting to here is that I acknowledge that you need good people, and you need the right number of people. And given that this person will be a 4 in 6 months, they're already mid-scale and beyond. And if the county had the resources to be able to afford to hire fee appraisers and highly skilled people at a 7, and we could afford it and the taxpayers support it, I wouldn't have a problem with it. This isn't about trying to curtail the capacities in your office, and it's certainly not trying to put us in a position where we aren't able to do appraisals or assessments on all of our new construction. But at some point, there is this budget creep that happens because decisions are made from meeting to meeting, over week, over month, over quarters. And it's a human tendency to lose track of the fact of how many of these positions we've bumped up. Oh, it's just a couple of steps here, a couple of steps there. The cumulative effect of that is going to raise taxes on the people of Franklin County, and that's my worry. Thank you.
All right. There's no further comments. There's been a motion and a second for a 15.3. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. It passes. All right, next we got Hospital District 1 ARPA contract.
So the first one, we have Hospital District 1, and I sent this contract to them on May 31st, and they were trying to get an attorney to review it. They knew that Jeff Briggs, our attorney, had reviewed with me, and we had made edits to it. But as with all attorneys, they're really backdated, and they could not get their attorney after a month and a half to review, so they went ahead and they're going with the contract we had sent them. This one is for a total of $1.5 million. This is to purchase 3 ambulances, and one of which they ordered the ambulance last June. Give you an idea, as far as the back dates on these, they're looking at 2 or 3 years out for fire trucks, ambulances, all types of equipment. They haven't even gotten the chassis yet, and it's been a year. So this is for not only that one, that's why you will find that that one was $342,000 ordered last summer. Excuse me. And then the next 2 are $402,000. They are also looking at an extrication vehicle. They're looking at some load lifts that, in effect, will help the backs of those EMTs that are trying to load people into the ambulances, and they're kind of like a hydraulic lift for them to be able to put those people into the ambulances. And that's for a couple of those as well. But everything's gone up from the beginning, and so it's just a matter of whatever they can do with $1.5 million, definitely starting with the 3 ambulances and their striker loaders. So then whatever other equipment that they can take care of with this. I will get invoicing and all documentation needed once the purchases are made. We've also changed this up to where what had happened initially in a lot of the documentation put out by the federal government with ARPA funds was a matter of the project had to be completed due to the situations of the delays on the ambulances and such needing, 2 or 3 years before they get them. We switched it over. I had checked with Jeff to see if we could maybe tie it into the last payment. So we switched it over to where as long as the items are paid for by December of 2026, that is what we've switched the contract to include, rather than final project, simply because of the situations going on. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Questions, commissioners? There are no questions. I'll entertain a motion.
Move for approval of Resolution 2023-190 as presented.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Discussion? Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And next, we have Fire District 5.
Yes. Fire District 5 is for a fire truck, and it would be with tax $629,599.88. The amounts given previously were for the fire trucks only, and again, everything's gone up, just as you could see that the ambulances went up $60,000 just since last year. But this one did not include tax previously. I had calculated $550. They were lucky enough for this one, their truck also was going to be a good 2 or 3 years out, no guarantee. They were able to come across a demo that they're able to buy, and that's the one, this one here, and it was $592,000, and then with tax comes to $629,000.
Commissioners, questions?
Move for approval of Resolution 2023-191 as presented.
2023-191, discussion. I've got a question. When we previously went through these amounts, we were at 1.5 for the hospital District 1, and we were 500,000 for 5. We increased that because of the larger cost for that fire truck. And it's a used fire truck, you said?
It's a demo.
A
So
demo.
it's new, but it's a demo.
Okay.
It's just happened to be built already.
So I'm just alluding to the fact that we've got more ARPA funds that are leaving for this one truck. And I was curious as, we never talked about increasing it, although it's here before us now. I'm just letting it be known that we only agreed to a $500,000 amount.
It was on the list. It had moved from 500 to 550 as he got new quotes. The other one is a little bit less. I believe it is 550 before tax. But again, it's one that the current fire truck that they have is rusting on the inside, has a leak. And so totally up to you. Otherwise, he'll need to wait 2 or 3 years to get the other one.
I'm just making a point.
No.
So if there's no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.
Okay, that takes us down to public comment. Is there anybody in the room for public comment? And I apologize, I think our phones are not working because we don't have nobody down in the main office today to answer the phones, so the phone lines are not working. Is there anybody in the room for public comment? Please come forward.
Morning, Commissioners. I'm going to talk to you again about the property assessment recently, the issues that have come before us. And I want to just say that I feel the single most important function of the assessor's office is to establish accurate assessment roll each year. And they've fallen sorely below that fundamental expectation. A state licensed certified appraiser, he's addressed this commission recently, several times said, quote, they don't know what they don't know. And the assessor is allowing them to lead based on this position. But equally troubling to me is that instead of coming forth and owning a mistake, the assessor continues to barker that these increases are fair amounts, they do not unfairly tax people, the assessments are absolutely accurate, got data, statistics, will defend those things, absolutely correct. But at the same time, his office is redoing some of their work and decreasing values quickly before the appeal is filed, sometimes without contacting the property owner. So if the original data is so accurate, why are they changing it? It seems clear that initial mistakes were made, and now they're doing damage control. The assessor does repeatedly encourage people to file their appeal, that it is not complicated. He says it's your right, and it's not a quote-unquote huge deal. And also that appeals are way down from what he anticipated under the numbers that would be normal filing for this office. And maybe that is in part due to some poor communication, again, of important information should be provided to the public. An example, recently a person came to submit their completed petitions to the Board of Equalization. They were told that the value card had to be attached. And they said in nowhere in the document, in the informational letter, nor in the document of the petition filing was that noted. They persisted, and the document was accepted with the statement, well, it may be rejected. Now, their persistence allowed them to do that, but maybe someone else would have abandoned that effort at that point. So I submitted my appeal the week prior, and Jennifer, the lady in the clerk, said, no problem, we can take that. If we need to put the card, we can look that up, or you can email it to me, which I did. Despite the assessor repeatedly stating your taxes will not go up, the likelihood of them not seems somewhat remote. If the average vacant lot sales in West Pasco had newly assessed values assigned 20 to 30% more than their actual purchase price several months earlier, then it would seem if your property value goes up more, then the rate will go down 20 or 30%, simple math indicates your tax bill is going to be higher. So I believe it's disingenuous for him to state their inflated property values will not be a factor in tax increase. He was asked if his office has the legal authority to knowingly assess property above their market value, and a clear answer wasn't really provided. A state-licensed certified appraiser did say his market value appraisals, if they were inaccurate, he could be held liable. The chief appraiser said she submits the information to the model, and if it kicks back, they keep trying. Basically sounds like trial and error practice. They should have the capability to adjust the computer module and produce accurate results. The chief appraiser's quote-unquote thankless job pays over $100,000 a year and should command more accurate. As a Franklin County property owner for 40 years, I have never before had occasion to object to my assessed values until this year. Last year was questionable. This year is inexplicable. As one of our commissioners noted prior, there is, quote, clearly some type of problem here. Taxpayers in Franklin County deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment? I won't ask if there's anybody, oh, there we go. Nobody on the phone because we can't have a phone. It's okay.
George Dockstetter. That young lady just said a mouthful, and it's all accurate. It is not easy to appeal your taxes to the Board of Equalization. You have to show up at the courthouse to get the information that you need. And they're not that damn helpful down there. When I presented the facts, as I've said before, the assessor can change the value right there if you can prove it. I was told so. After proving they were 20% too high on a property that I did appeal. And I've helped about a half a dozen people try to fill out their forms, and every one of them I've seen so far has been ridiculously overpriced. And one thing the assessor said that sort of boggled my mind, there are 4,000 units of new construction behind. Well, that's probably, if you go back an even generous 4 years. And it's doubtful that we've built 1,000 units in Franklin County a year for the last 4 years. We had been averaging under 800. So they're 5 years behind, but they got everybody else except new construction. And new construction should be easy. I paid $450,000 for the house. That's what it should be assessed at. Why are you behind? All you got to do is pull the sales records, which they seem to do on everybody else. Let's get it done and get that office straightened out. And like she said, my property went up 20%, 25 basically. And I know damn good and well my taxes aren't going to be the same. And even if you did the 1% increase, my taxes and everybody else's taxes in here are going to be a hell of a lot higher, the 1% more than last year. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Public comment? Seeing nobody come forward, we'll go move into Commissioner Administrator updates. Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you, Chair. First, before I give my report, our clerk of the board, she is retiring, and I just wanted to thank her for her hard work over these 3 months. And I know it was a tough decision, but you know, she's a kind soul. She loves God. She brings warmth to this courthouse. So I just wanted to say I'm going to miss you because you've been great to me, and we work closely together. So I couldn't convince her to stay longer. So, but thank you for your service, and I know I want you to know how much I appreciate you. So thank you. Other things we've been working on, obviously the BOE stuff. I was able to get a hold of Jennifer, Chair. 175 appeals so far this year. So quite a few. I don't know if John's still here. I'm not sure how that compares to previous years, but I would assume with as much conversation that there's been, it's a pretty good clip. Also been working on the civil service situation, well documented in the media. We had all 3 civil service members resign. The good news is 2 of them contacted me, said they are willing to come back onto the board if they are reappointed. Have also gotten several folks that have reached out and actually applied to be on the board. So I feel like maybe a blessing in disguise. We come back stronger from this. So I'm always an optimist. So I feel like, ultimately, hopefully it'll be a good thing. We are excited. We have a new administrative assistant that will join my office on Monday. So looking forward to her. The consort study. So we've got everything signed and ready to go. So that will start Monday. I'll talk with the folks from consort today. The salary portion of that study will be first because I know a lot of folks in the courthouse really want to see how we compare with other jurisdictions, and do want to put on the record that we are not doing a levy lid lift, just the timing of it, and we certainly don't want to raise your taxes, and I don't want to raise your taxes, but just really excited about this study.
Thank you. Commissioner Peck.
Short week with a holiday, had 3 meetings/conversations with the state AG's office on a matter of potential and pending litigation. Thank you.
Commissioner Mullen.
Again, it was a short week. Last week, I think everybody was anticipating the 4th, and so not a whole lot of meetings. I did have the opportunity to stop by planning and building and visit with Director Derek Bratton. I had some questions on acronyms that had came up from some constituents, and stopped by his office. Everyone there couldn't have been more helpful, and I would encourage anybody, if they have any questions at all with planning and building, just please reach out to them, because they were extremely helpful to me and very clear on the acronyms that had came up. So again, if anybody has questions, his entire staff was excellent to work with. And that is it.
Well, I too want to thank Ms. Milham for her time at Franklin County, 7 years. And I want to thank her for helping me get up to standards on parliamentary procedure and getting me in contact with Ann McFarland and all your hard work that you've done here. Mr. Gonzalez nailed it. You are a kind soul and a good person, and you will be missed. And this county is losing a great employee. But I wish you the best, and I know that your mother is very important to you, and you got your heart in the right place. So thank you. Had an agenda meeting for the agenda for today. We knew it was light. Also had a meeting with Mike and Dwayne and our HR about the problems in the courthouse. Ben Franklin Transit, we had a meeting with the general manager there about the potential of the problems on the buses and how we can combat that. And I think we got a pretty good strategy going forward with Ben Franklin Transit. I got veterans today at 3 p.m. And I just want to mention that the 4th of July was the marking point for the start of the Freedom Rodeo in Basin City. And it started because the people in Franklin County wanted to defy the tyrannical posture of our governor in the mask mandate and the gathering mandates that he had put forth. And that's how this rodeo came forward. And it has morphed into a PRCA sanctioned event. That's the good that came out of COVID for Franklin County. We have a PRCA sanctioned event. We had the #1 bull rider, and it's going on. This is the last day, so if you would like to attend that, you can go to Basin City and see what these our constituents have put together up there. It is incredible. And I'm proud to be part of Franklin County because of it. Because if we don't stand for liberty and freedom, who's going to? God bless the people in Basin City. All right, that takes us down to elected and department head business. Any elected or department heads have anything today? Seeing none coming forward, administration office business, Mr.
No, sir.
Gonzalez? Nope. Back to public comment. Anybody for public comment?
I forgot to mention earlier, I asked 4 meetings ago for a comparison of the department heads, what their taxes went up on their homes compared to their neighbors, 3 on each side, and I haven't seen a damn thing or heard a damn thing. So I'd still like to know if there's favoritism coming out of the assessor's office for all the elected and department heads in the county. I've asked for it more than once, and it's been going on a month, and I haven't heard a thing or seen a thing. And I'll reiterate, poker buddies would like to know too. So, and one other thing, I was at Basin City, not yesterday, but the day before, and going there tonight, going to be a heck of a fireworks show. So, thank you.
Mr. Gonzalez, maybe you can
Absolutely.
head that up.
Yep, I'll work on that.
Is there anybody else for public comment? Seeing none, we'll move down to the workshop by Mr. Anderson. Franklin County Financial Director, Mr. Anderson.
Okay, looks like I'm already off on my thing. This should be, say, through May 2023. So yes, these numbers are made through May 2023. June just wrapped up, but ultimately I won't have a chance to update those numbers for another probably a couple weeks. So I can come before the board in another probably 2 weeks to go over those numbers. But just I want to, when I do these updates, so what I do is I go through I go through any line that's off by more than, between the estimated budget through that period and their actual. If it's over, typically $10,000 is what I do. If it's under or above that, then I'll go in and look at the detail to see if what we've spent is like the same time frame as the budget. So like there's a lot of things that we budget expenditures for where there's 12 monthly payments. So if we've so if there's for May, if we've, assumably there would be 5 payments made at that point, but we might have only spent 4 of them. And so then I'll adjust the monthly budget as well so that it's 4 payments compared to four payments. And so that's what I'm doing on each of these. So I don't go every single line, but anything that has a pretty significant variance, I'm looking at and making these adjustments. So, but I keep in mind that so there's some where it's a very easy thing to look at where it's 12 monthly payments would be the example, but then there are others where it's not as linear like that, and so for those I generally just rely on how we've spent it in past years. But like on the second page, I talked to Jeff in elections, or he's not in elections, but he helps with elections in the auditor's office. And on here. Oh, they're actually positive now. Last month when I'd put together a report, they were in the red, which would indicate bad. But ultimately, with that, there are times where they had spent money ahead of time to try to lock in prices early because of costs going up, and so just wanting to make sure they got good prices. So anyway, so as I start. The first section here is on personnel services, so it's your salaries and benefits, essentially. There's really only 2 that stand out on this one to me. District Court, unless they have some vacancies later on this year, I'm guessing they're going to probably need a budget transfer. They had a long-term employee that left. And so right now they're $24,937 over budget. So at this point, it's looking like without vacancies, they're probably going to need a transfer entirely due to a staff member leaving and the payout on that. The next line down, the miscellaneous boards, disability board. This is one that I've already, Margot noticed this one, that it was trending a lot higher than it had been, just due to, there's one person within the disability board that were incurring a lot more expenses, approximately $10,000 a month, and that previously was a $60,000 budget, and I think that $60,000 has been adequate for several year. But this year, we're spending a lot more, and so Margot has been working on a budget transfer resolution for that, to address that item. And I think she was going to be presenting, I think it was set for next week? 2 weeks. In 2 weeks. All of the other ones that are in the negative, so at the beginning of the year, we estimate salary savings, we estimate vacancies, and so there's enough of the vacancy savings that we for each of those other ones in the red to cover the variance. So I don't think there's any issues with any of those other budgets. Then going down to the other personnel services, which is, this is the bulk of the spending that happens throughout the county other than salaries and benefits. So it covers most everything other than like capital. Capital would be in a different category. But it'd be your supplies, your travel, those kind of things. For this, the top one on there that's in the red right now is non-departmental, and that is, the reason for that primarily is the insurance that was significantly higher this year than it has been previous. So the first payment that we made, which was for January through September 2023, was 37% higher than the previous year, and the property was 15% higher. So just insurance went up a ton. So there is enough. I don't think that there's going to be a transfer needed for this, just because the non-departmental budget also has it has the contingency lines and stuff in it. So I don't think we're going to need anything within that. But it's just something to keep in mind as we're transferring to other departments for related to contingency, that we have spent a lot more in this budget for primarily insurance at this point. The next line down, the sheriff's budget, there was the one thing that stood out in this was there was a CCOM tax remit payment for $77,000. It looks like it should have been a 2022 expense, but wasn't. It's showing up in 2023, and so because of that, then I'm comparing essentially 13 months of budget versus 12 months of payments, although these I think it's monthly payments on these. And so there's one extra payment showing up for 2023. And so because of that, they're looking to be $48,000 over. It could be by the end of the year, as this is May, they may have enough savings to cover that. But that's something that they can look at, or we can assist with that as well. And I do want to say that not all of these that are in red are necessarily ones that need to be addressed. A lot of these are ones that they'll even out by the end of the year. It's May, so there's a lot of spending. There's a lot of spending to happen. Just like the corrections one. The year-to-date actual is only 1.3 million on a 3.3 million budget. So there's still $2 million left of budget to spend. My comparison is the estimate through May, but as long as there's savings throughout the rest of the year, they're fine. But this can help I think if nothing else, this presentation can help departments to look at their budgets and see if this looks accurate to them, and then potentially then come in for ask for money earlier on in the year instead of waiting until the end of the year or even the beginning of next year to ask for a budget transfer for the current year. Just trying to address things earlier, so we know earlier on that how much money we're going to have, what we're ultimately going to end with.
So, Mr. Anderson, have you sent this to every department?
I have not.
I would encourage you to send it to every department so they can get a read on their department where they're at, and maybe they can consciously think about trying to save in other areas so that you get, we're early in the year, but this is great info.
Thank you. Moving down the line, corrections. The biggest one in that was the insurance line, which was $118,000 over my estimate, the estimated monthly budget for the payment covering the first 3 quarters of the year. There's another quarterly payment that will be due towards the end of the year, which will likely put this one line $157,000 over budget. That's the first line here. So right now, they've budgeted $80,462 for the entire year, but at this point, we've already spent $178,000 with another one more quarter to go on that. And insurance has gone up. As I mentioned on the non-departmental one, the insurance has gone up a significant amount. So that was the biggest thing in there. There's also a communications line. There was a communications object 4200 communications. It was unbudgeted for the year, but there's been 43,000 in spending in it. It looks like something we've paid in the past, but it was paid out of a few different lines previously. It does look like and I'll show that on this last page too. From what I can tell, it looks like for the last line there, the 101,540,4103, that we are pretty far under budget, that we haven't been spending. This one's a little harder to trend just because the payments aren't super consistent. Sometimes it looks like we're paying for a 4-week period. Sometimes it's 3 weeks. And so I did the best I could to try to figure out the spending on that, but it looks like we're underspent on that by about 150,000, which fairly well offsets the insurance to a large degree, or it offsets it entirely up to this point. Although by the end of the year, it may not. Overall, 34,000 over budget based on my comparisons at this point. Going down the line, clerk, there was the biggest thing in that at this point was the jury fees over through May by 19,000, and this is comparing to. So this would be a linear thing. These aren't consistent payments. So I'm basing it on how money has been spent in previous years, and my comparison years really would be a COVID year, I think, and so probably not a good comparison year, But ultimately, the budget overall, I have $15,000 over budget, but that may or may not. Just with the jury fees, it's something to keep in mind that there's still 80,000 or so left to spend on that budget, so they very well may be able to keep it in line by the end of the year. The corrections food service, each of the lines in that one is over what I've estimated through this point of the year, although none of the individual lines were over the $10,000 threshold. So I didn't go in and look at any of these lines, but just from a purely comparison of past budgets, they're based on how it was spent in previous years, $10,000 over at this point of the year. And I think we have seen significant increases in inflationary costs and probably this kind of stuff as well. The assessor, I've got 8,811 over to this point. This one, postage, ship, and freight, I've got it over compared to previous by 14,000. This very well could be similar to what elections had been doing, where they were buying stuff early on. I didn't verify with John if that was the case, but it could be that they were trying to keep costs, get their earlier costs instead of waiting and having costs go up even more. We're getting down into some of the more minute overages at this point. There is I will say the security budget, the last one I've got highlighted there. It's only a $5,000 budget. There's been $4,000 spent so far this year, 3,900 of that on badges and fobs. So it's spent 80% of the budget. So I don't know if there's some more stuff coming in, but there's less than 1,000 left. So that definitely is one that could need some budget before the end of the year based on that purchase. And then some of the next page goes over some of the just some of the other categories that we have, other than salaries and benefits and such as capital outlay. Capital outlay, the only one on there right now is the sheriff one that was $45,000 over, but this is vehicles and stuff, so you wouldn't necessarily expect these to be linear purchases or anything. You could purchase the entire budget's worth at the beginning of the year, so you can't. It's tough to compare to previous years, and so as long as you're not planning to make purchases later on, it wouldn't be a concern. That's really about all I have for you. I don't know if there's any questions. I'd be glad to try to tackle them, or I can for next month's presentation, which probably would be in a couple weeks.
Commissioners'
maybe able to
questions?
come back with.
Yeah, Tim, I don't need an answer today, but if I recall what you said under corrections for insurance, it looked like it had been budgeted 80,000. It looked like they're at 187,000 or something. You mentioned a 37% increase in insurance. I'm wondering if
Yes, please.
we under budgeted for insurance in corrections, or if there's something else happening there. Where's the sheet that had the detail on that?
It's the very top line on this that has the insurance.
No, you had a sheet page with more detail, I think.
This is the one that has the detail, the insurance line, the 80,000.
Yeah, there were some notes to the right. Maybe it was a follow-on page, but that's fine. We can work with this. So we had it budgeted at 80. Yeah, I think that's what I was looking at right there.
Okay, this one.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it's. I think it's the I
Real
believe it's-
question is, do we know what the insurance was previous years? So we have some sort of a benchmark. Because the amount of cost on the insurance was kind of troubling. You said 37% increase.
I believe it's been. I believe we paid more than that in this line in corrections for the past couple of years. I don't think it's been adjusted for. I think the budget has stayed the same at 80,000 for several years now, if not 4 or 5.
Well, and that's really what I think the greatest value of these kind of presentations is, because as you pointed out, there's a lot of variables and timing plays into it. So a lot of these that are red very well could be black in 30 days from now. You just don't know. But when you see something where the year-to-date cost is already eclipsing the budget, then that's a pretty good indicator that you've under budgeted. So maybe Sheriff and others could just put an eyeball on cost of insurance and corrections, so that when we do the budget here in about 3 months, we've got a viable number for insurance.
And so these costs too, the insurance numbers, they ultimately start in the commissioner's office, because the bill is initially paid out of non-departmental, and then it's billed out to various departments such as corrections and sheriff and others that have vehicles and stuff. And so I don't know how that communication has worked about what the estimate, what each department's estimate should be in the following year. But also it could be helpful just to even send those numbers to the auditor's office, whereas we can add in those estimates for those departments as well, to make sure they get in for the.
Even if we took a macro level look and just said the last 5 years, what have we budgeted for insurance and corrections, and what have we ended up paying? Just those 2 data points would give us sort of a big picture, because you are correct, and I've observed over the years that we'll get in the habit of budgeting a certain amount for a particular service, or in this case, insurance, and it'll be working fine for 2-3 years, and we continue to budget at the same rate, and suddenly there's a big increase in claims, and it goes up 30-40%, and we miss that when we're budgeting for that account. So that's all I'm trying to do, is make sure that we budget properly.
Sounds good.
Any other questions?
No, I just want to say thank you for all the information. I know that you and your staff work extremely hard on getting the information to us. I think it's pretty viable that we get the information as quickly as we can. We're halfway through the year, and this is just through March, is that correct?
This one's through May.
Through May. Okay. I just was reading the date on the top, so. But no, thank you. I do appreciate all the hard work that your staff does, and thank you.
And I too want to thank you, Tim. I think that's very important to share with every department so that everybody can get a read on where they're at this early in this year so that we don't go over budget, because we are heading into some very tough times. And I appreciate all the work you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Gonzalez, did you have anything you want to add?
No, sir. Just Tim's been really great to work with. Been meeting with him a couple of times a month, and anytime I have questions, he's always really accessible. So he's been a pleasure to work with, and really appreciate all his work.
Thank you.
All righty. So with that,
No need for executive session.
no need for executive session? And with that, is there any other business for the good of the county? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.